Cool. That's up. Let me just put the full screen. Full screen. There we go. It's frozen for a little bit. But anyway, welcome everyone to another podcast episode for Video Game Anatomies, where we will be diving again into some more video game mechanics and walking through everything. Today, I'm joined by actually two new guests, brand new to the podcast itself. I'd like to introduce the Super Saiyan profile picture over there is Mr. Perfect himself. How you doing, man?
Hello.
Sounds good.
Do we do like an introduction? Like, hey, what's up? My name is Perfect. I'm from one. Or is it just?
Nah, you can just say whatever you want. The other anime, because I don't know any anime, is Mr. Jude. I'm gonna take a guess. That's Death Note.
Close. It is an anime. You're right about that.
Okay. I wasn't gonna guess it anyway. But anyway, yeah, these are two brand new guests, also kind of podcast veterans in their own right. They do run their own podcast called Ikasi Podcast, where they go through the whole recent events of gaming and around development and tech and all that. Lovely podcast. You guys should give it a check out. They go through it extensively. And it's always nice to check out a little bit of local people. It's not it's nice to find your own people you like to watch and stuff, but it's always that you get that extra nice special feeling when it's like a local person supporting and whatever.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, yeah, so for our topic today for this podcast, if you can't tell by the title already, it's video game inventories. The big thing you're carrying around, the infinite size of a man's pockets, the infinite black hole that is a woman's handbag, inventory in general. It's for the most part, it really kind of is all about organization and management. And it's almost in gaming, it's not really something we ever take realistically, because I think there's a kind of general consensus that inventory can almost never be realistically portrayed in video games for the sake of, video games. Like, it's almost comically exaggerated what we can carry. And at this point, I think we're totally okay with that. I don't think really there's so much hoo-ha about it that it does become a real general problem like we discuss often. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the walk it went through, the evolution that inventory went through, because as with all things in these mechanics, it has had an extensive history, from humble beginnings to a very core component now of gaming these days. It's also come a long way. But yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of all that. And yeah, I'd like to kind of throw a quick question out there, but maybe it's not as obvious to you at first. But if you had to quickly think off of your top of your head, the best inventory system in a video game, anything out there?
Damn. Best inventory system in a video game.
Yeah.
Well,
are you gonna take it, or
I was gonna grab it away from you, since you need time to like delegate with yourself and think about a solid answer. But if you have something to say, shoot, man.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
All right. Sweet. So throughout the games that I've played extensively, an inventory system that I actually really liked was where they separated the healing items, like the one for your HP and your mana or MP, whatever you want to call it, and the other equipment like your swords, your breastplates, etc. That sort of made it very intuitive, so you'd know exactly where to find your armor, your healing stuff, and etc. Rather than when everything is like mixed up, and you'd have to like look for everything. That's a bit disorganized for me. But again, not every single game adopts the same mechanism, or inventory style, or whatever you want to call it. Not every game uses the same mechanic. So again, that's just the one that I personally enjoyed using. So yeah, that was my favorite one. What about yours, BigMacDaddy?
Well, unless Perfect's already got its answer. Does he have an answer?
I hope so.
I'd say okay. Let's see. I'm thinking about the games like The Witcher, I guess, as
Mm,
well. I guess that's like somewhere up there. Some like RPG games, like they get the inventory systems like really like solid,
in depth.
but then
Yeah,
sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, especially for a person who's not used to
used to it.
playing
No,
those type of games. Um, I can say I could say Apex is also a decent mention.
it's decent.
I guess
Mm,
maybe I'm a bit biased because I just like played it like 5 minutes ago. Uh, but I mean, the
playing
fact
it
that
right
you start
now.
off with like a base amount of space in your inventory, and then as if you pick up a higher level bag, I mean that's like you know a BR inventory system where
Mm,
you pick up a bigger bag, you can store more stuff inside. But with Apex, I guess you have your you can store whatever anywhere, but it's automatically sorted. So you first have your bullets, your ammunition is automatically like stored in the first couple of slots, and then your heals are like pushed down to like a lower level, and then you have your nades at the end. So it automatically sorts everything for you.
yeah.
Um, so I guess if you're a person who likes doing like custom sorting stuff yourself, maybe you might not like it, but the fact that it just does it for you because like you're focusing on like killing people and just getting
Yeah.
the best loot, so you don't want to have like sort things out. So the fact that it just like sorts everything like ammunition, heals, then like nades and whatever extra items. I think it's a decent inventory system. Not saying it's the best, but I'd say it's one of my favorite because I don't have to think too much about it because I'm mostly focused on the game itself. Because I feel like the inventory system should just be something that helps you carry stuff, right?
Pretty
Not
much.
necessarily like a game within a game in itself. You feel me? So that's my take on it, like inventories.
Yeah. I've got a few options in mind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for casual experience, usually first-person shooters generally are okay with inventory systems. It's not too major. The
Mm-hmm.
sandbox-oriented ones, of course, are quite nice. The ones with the more traditional weapon wheel, essentially. If you're going to
Yeah.
more sandbox casual shooting experience, because they all store your weapons very effectively, all have their different slots and stuff, and are usually pretty well organized. RPGs, there are a specific set of RPGs that I do like. Funny enough, it's not an inventory system that almost exists anymore today. Kind of sad about that. I don't want to spoil it too much because I'm going to get back into it later. But it's basically the size-based inventory. It's the one where you have a bunch of tiles, and essentially, like the size of your item is essentially what it kind of takes up your inventory space. So if you have a huge sword, you have to like
Mm-hmm.
lie it vertically or horizontally and try and fit it into the space to see how much space you can max out. That was a cool
Mm-hmm.
mechanic for me. It's a very old school mechanic, not seen much, too much today. And the other one, for a game that's pretty much got the best inventory system, also not going to spoil it because I'm going to talk about it later, but Death Stranding has got an exquisite inventory system that I'll probably be talking a bit about later, but it's where kind of it becomes more than the game within the game. The inventory becomes the actual game, which kind of
Okay.
became a very interesting thing. But we'll discuss that later. But more or less, my favorite stuff. I find it weird. The games that I do enjoy the most pretty much have the most generic inventory systems you can ever think of. But when I do have a good inventory
Mm-hmm.
system that I like, I like the game. But it's I don't know. It's funny. Not the games I usually play that have the good inventory systems, but oh well. So yeah, that was kind of the cases we find ourselves in today. As Perfect mentioned, the battle royales, and as we have also kind of looked at like the thing about most inventory system game is quick delivery. Kind of all the gameplay is fast, intense. You know, a lot of people don't want to really think about that inventory. Sometimes it organizes itself, and most of that stuff. But it wasn't always obviously the case. We had a bunch of eras of gaming and stuff that we've gone through, and in the first era of gaming, you didn't really have a need for inventory. We're talking about the golden era of arcade gaming. Not really practically any need for
Mm-hmm.
kind of inventory there. It's all about high scores and just inserting a coin and playing a little bit with your mates at the arcade. And yeah, it's just not something we observe. And it didn't really fit with the objectives of the video game at that time. But there were at least two games that can lay claim to probably having the first blocks of an inventory concept in the game. If you had to take a random guess, how old do you think is the oldest inventory system ever in a video game? Any random guess?
Mm. I
Well,
haven't played many OG games. Damn. I take a guess.
I want to say like based off of some of the games that I sort of like know from way back when, you know, since Clash, like the first Clash came out in 19 something. I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah.
Um, there wasn't an inventory based system there. It was more of like an arcade game. So I want to say 20 to 25 years.
20 to 25, 2 years, yeah.
I guess also like same range. Okay. I think you might like throw like a curveball and then you're like, oh shit, actually this long. So I'll say 30. I'll say 30 years.
54.
Huh?
54 years old.
4.
54.
What?
5-4.
54.
54. Oh, 54.
The inventory
What game was
system
that?
was invented before the save existed in video games, to put it into perspective.
Sheesh.
So,
What game was that?
yeah, that was kind of, as you might have guessed, these were two games at that point where almost the literal basics of the video game was literally about inventory. And that's kind of how it was born, about this concept where two people were thinking about kind of just the concept of a video game, and the way it was presented and the way it came up with, it actually kind of conceptualized inventory going further. So they are both at the same time almost released, but these were text-based strategy games. So we're not talking about graphical displays of inventory. We're not talking about actual, an inventory that someone owned. These were just two text-based games that kind of worked in the same sense that inventory would work in real life. So the first of these ones were called, I have to say this name right, Hammurabi. So Hammurabi was basically a text-based strategy game. You had to manage kind of these resources of grain or rice that were in limited supply. So basically Hammurabi works like this. You are a Babylonian leader. You have to you have 10 rounds, which one round is like a year, and you have this certain amount of grain or rice to feed your people with, and you have to basically resource manage that grain or rice to the end of the year until you get more supply. But random events can occur. There can be floods, there can be fires, there can be illness. So, for example, floods and fires will kill off your supply of grain, whereas illness and other things will kill off your population. But by then, you have to use less grain, but again, bad because your population is dying. So it was kind of, again, a threw around a lot of stuff, but the whole premise of the game is how well could you manage your grain or rice supply. And that was kind of the first baby steps towards this whole thing of having some sort of resource that you possess, that you own, that you produce and like have, and what to do with it, like how to use it and stuff like that, and how it's stored. And that's the other one. Kind of was called, what's his name? The Oregon Trail. That was a more kind of traditional use we see of the inventory system. That was only really released in 1971. There was prototypes of it, but only really released in 1971. And you would assume the role of a leader going on a trek with pioneers. And again, the whole system of you have so much food, you have so much water, you have so much ammunition, and so much other kind of supplies and stuff to get to the end. Again, random encounters will happen along the way. Perhaps animal attacks you, bandits, someone falls ill. There's a division between the people in your settlement, stuff like that. But again, it was all about getting to the end of the Oregon Trail with the supplies you have, and picking up supplies along the way. Because where this game now differed from Hammurabi, there was a way to replenish your supply. Hammurabi was like you get given your supply and that was it. You kind of couldn't really do anything except manage it. Whereas this game had kind of a risk and reward system where you can send people out, you can get more food by hunting. Obviously, they could get killed during the hunting or something could go wrong. And you also expend ammunition by hunting, but you get food in return. So this was a way more kind of intricate start of systems where you start to see collection of inventory, expenditure of inventory, and then how you manage that across the game. But it was at this point, because at its most basic form, this was the literal premise of the game. But it's still the first steps we've ever seen of inventory in games. So that was quite cool. Quite cool to know about. Oregon Trail especially actually got a really, really hot streak and became popular with this. It was, let me just put it this way. It sold more than 65 million copies. 65 million copies. It's pretty much That's more than GTA. That's more than Skyrim. It's more than quite a bunch of games. Pretty much just not more than Minecraft. Pretty much. But yeah, at this point. But yeah, it has a status quo, that game. It's made a lot for itself, big name for itself, and obviously well deserved, because it really kind of ushered in this kind of need of an inventory system in games, which just bring another gaming kind of concept and another, well, as again mentioned, the game within the game about what inventory holds for us. So yeah, that was just the start of it. Obviously, at this point, just text-based strategy games. There were no graphical displays yet, no real kind of inventory menu that you would browse to, really. It's just straight up the use and expenditure of resources. But there was one game. Now, I would make a case to argue for it, but it's going to sound weird when I say it at first. But the more you think about it, the more technically it kind of makes sense. But it is on a technicality. There is a inventory management game that was done in 1984, and it's probably one of the best known games of all time. So not like a obscure game that I'm going to mention, not like a, you had to be, from the 80s to know this game. This is one of the best known games to this day of all time. I'd probably classify it as an inventory management game just because of how the premise really works. Throw your guesses out there. 1984, what do you think?
1984. I don't think. Sheesh, man, I ain't that old.
A really popular game. Like,
I said you might surprise me,
anyone
so
would
it
know
must be like a mainstream game.
It's mainstream.
1984.
You could play it on
Jude?
your phone.
Do you have
You could
anything?
probably play it on
Play it
anything
on
you can
phone.
imagine. Pretty much.
Inventory. What?
It's not gonna.
Wait,
Don't think about inventory and it in the same sentence. Try and think about a very popular game and just throw a name out there.
1984.
1984.
like games that you could play on like a Nintendo handheld or something like that, right?
I'm pretty sure you can download this game on a microwave and it'll work. This game is like very basic.
Contra? I'm gonna say Contra.
It's close, but not Contra.
Ah,
Club. No. I feel like I'm thinking about this too hard.
No, think it. Literally, like, throw any game out there.
Okay, Super Mario. Super Mario. Like I'm not sure if it's released in like 1984.
Super Mario was released in 1981, so close, but
damn.
yeah, not. Tetris.
Right.
1984.
Oh, what? Wait.
Tetris.
Okay. Okay.
It sounds weird.
Okay. I see.
But let me explain my thinking. So Tetris is obviously a game we all know. It's literally like the whole game premises. You get given a block, put it in a space, try and fit it in a space as kind of as best you can, and try and like manage it to plug all the holes and gaps that you possibly can until obviously you run out of space. But imagine this. It's a randomized inventory, isn't it? Where like you literally get given a block, you have to manage the resource of the block, put it somewhere, you expended it, next block comes, same thing. All time. Managing your inventory, putting it in place, full.
Yeah.
I mean that is a fair assumption. Like on a technicality, that is like
on a technicality,
fair,
Because I mean, if you had to genuinely go and guess, where would you what genre would you put Tetris in? If you had to give it a genre.
Strategy.
Strategy.
I'm gonna say strategy.
Strategy is also good. I guess strategy is also a good one. Yeah. But yeah,
because I mean, you have to think about it. Like, you look at the next coming items, and then you just have to like, okay, store this here, put that there.
But it is a strategy, yeah. But it's usually what goes paired with a lot of inventory management games. It's usually your strategy-based kind of things, and it's just with a lot of features of the video games and the generations to come. We started to get larger memories in video games. Obviously, at the beginning now of time, as I mentioned, even in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we're not dealing with a lot of memory here. I mean, these games they're like developed on kilobytes of memory. Like, There's
Yeah.
no real extra space to work with. Like, they pretty much coded the game and the RAM, and that's all that was on the game. The RAM could just run the game, and that was it. There was nothing really you could store at that point. That's what a save file like only appeared in the 70s, and not even like complete in the 70s. It wasn't standardized in the 70s even. So, because it's just there wasn't really space to work with. The whole premise is you're playing the game, and that's all I can store in my memory. But yeah, as time went on, obviously our memories and stuff did increase, and we had, other than save files, also more space to start storing things like states of the game and other things like that. So, yeah, but it wasn't really that we would see inventory itself as a concept, as a menu, as a kind of storage space that could also be a state of the game until literally the 90s. This is now arguably where I would have agreed, like with both of you saying 2025 took 30 years, arguably the inventory we know today, the traditional visual menu one, probably only 20, 25, 30 years old, because that's only realistically when they had the storage space for that. But yeah, it's not even like some games did have it. Like there was storage. Some games, like if you think again with Super Mario and stuff like that, there was technically storage space because I mean you do collect coins and it does keep track of how many coins you collect. But it's not like you can go into the menu and say, oh, how many coins have I got? It literally just you pick up the coin, it'll flash there to say, oh, you've got 3 coins, and then it just goes away. It doesn't really, you can't access that. You can't access that information. So it was just kind of a visual confirmation at that point. And then late 90s is the first time really we saw this HUD-like, heads-up display-like appearance that inventory really came across. And I have mentioned in the earlier podcasts, it's a pretty kind of regular game here. It's called The Secret of Monkey Island. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that one.
Nope, that's a first for me.
It's also it's an obscure game, but it's very, very important to the history of video games, but also an obscure game. It's a point-and-click adventure. I don't know if you guys have played a lot of those point-and-click adventure games.
Point and click.
So, okay, the very obvious example that they do on TV is Dora the Explorer. You know, the mouse goes somewhere, you click, and then she, like, walks. Those type of games.
But I mean...
Yeah, but those were, like, a big norm in the 90s. Like, obviously not really as well known today, and not really as kind of influential as a lot of others, but point and click really found its stride there in the late 90s around. We started with Secret of Monkey Island, kind of just an adventure game. The whole point is like you click, the person goes somewhere, you have kind of encounters, and you can like interact with stuff with all your clicking. But the point is, it was a puzzle type of game where like you navigate everywhere you want with the mouse, and obviously depending on where you click, stuff is going to happen. And you solve puzzles, you navigate to places, you kind of just piece together in your brain how you want to play the game. But obviously at this point, there was the first time we saw a heads-up display-like appearance of an inventory system, because now you started to have to pick up items, and you could store items and stuff that you had to use. So the Secret of Monkey Island had this literal like black bar, usually like this high at the bottom of the screen. So imagine where I'm standing, like about 1/3 of the screen will literally be the black bar telling you, here's your inventory, here's everything you have, and then you can click on it and use it. But it was revolutionary because, I mean, like, this is the first time you've ever seen what's inside your guys' pockets on screen, ever. Like, it hasn't been done before. So that was pretty, like, radical at the time, because people were like, whoa, I can see, like, you didn't have to, like, memorize that you have, like, a shovel and 20,000 ammo in your back pocket. So this was kind of the first time this has really crept in. And yeah, some of games started to adopt it. Again, the point-and-click adventures really started to adopt it because it fits their type of game. You had Maniac Mansion. You had even something like Pajama Sam, which is a really, really classic game. And I hope you guys know what Pajama Sam is. Otherwise, my child is going to die. But that was a really cool game. But anyway, Secret of Monkey Island also had a kind of traditional grid-like structure appearance for inventory items, like where every little item was placed in a little tile, kind of to just represent that's like the slot for the item. Traditionally, we obviously see inventory tiles a lot more these days in various inventory systems, but that's kind of where everything began, the visual representation of inventory. it paved just a lot for it. And again, very, very influential game for its time. And that also, now that I do mention the inventory systems, brings us to another interesting discussion. Based on what I've heard from you from the last question, though, it looks like your inventory systems is more like you're fine with the RPG systems, even if it's overwhelming. So you're fine with that whole display. But you also like the Battle Royale one where everything is kind of organized for you. And it auto manages, but it also like organizes for you very nicely with the health and the mana, as mentioned. So you're kind of looking for a more organized kind of structure that's casual, I guess.
I guess it depends on what game I'm playing. So, for example, in a BR game, right? I want to open my inventory less because, like, I don't want to stay in my inventory for too long. And then get started, while a person's like right in front of me while I'm busy trying to manage my inventory. But in a game like a sandbox or an RPG, I'd like to spend some time there. Because like I would like to like organize things or maybe upgrade stuff. So even though it might be overwhelming, but I feel like a very intuitive inventory system in like an RPG that I can like customize and like it gives me more freedom of how, like in terms of the configuration of it. I feel like it'll be like dope. Yeah. And so you just I guess it depends on like what game I'm playing at the time.
That's always pretty much the answer. Depends. But yeah, it's true though. Jude, you have a kind of an inventory system you'd say if the game has it, you're happy about it?
Yeah, definitely. Like as I said earlier in the episode, I do prefer the more organized inventory because an example, I can't really take one off the top of my head, but there was a game that I was playing and I wasn't very happy with it. I think it was Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. I'd have to like cycle through the inventory multiple times to find the certain thing that I'm looking for. It wasn't very intuitive. It wasn't open the menu, find the item you're looking for, equip it. I had to be fair, it was a quick access thing. I could have entered the menu, found the specific item that I wanted to use, and equipped it and used it. Essentially speaking, but the quick access, if I can say that, the quick access bar was not very intuitive. So that's one of the limitations to depending on this. Like if it depends on the game, I prefer a more organized approach because again, everything I know exactly where everything is and. It's easy to access. That's sort of like I guess I have OCD, but yeah.
No, that's it. I actually enjoy Minecraft's inventory system. The fact that you have like you have like your like that quick access like bar at the bottom.
The hot bar, yeah.
Yeah, like where you can access like whatever you want, like you can store like things that you want to access now, like there. And then if you press E, then it opens up your this whole inventory where it's like I guess your whole pockets, or whatever bag you're carrying, which you can't see.
Yeah.
Right. Which allows you to store more stuff, so you don't have to have like the things that you like can have things that you want to carry around, there with you, and then you also can build up chests where you can store things that you might need, but you might want them for the future. Because I feel like maybe you're playing a game and then you see something that you want to keep and then you're like, okay, cool, I want to use this sometime. I don't know when, but I want to have it. Yeah. So you want to store it away. So now you can build a chest, you can store it away, and boom, forget about it. And then maybe one day when that situation comes up, maybe you're working on some crazy build and you need to maybe you need that item, then you can go to that chest and then boom.
Yeah,
so like it's infinite, like.
Yeah, no, Minecraft is a game that like incorporates 3 inventory systems at once, but it does it so effortlessly that it really comes across as a smooth, nice, casual experience. Like it doesn't feel overwhelming. At least I don't. I hope Minecraft's inventory system doesn't really feel overwhelming at any point. It feels manageable.
No, it feels very simple. It feels very simple. I mean, the whole game and it's all like from 8 blocks. Like it's very like it's not simple.
Yeah.
Because like it like the whole concept of the game, like it's like phenomenal. Like, but it comes off really easy. Like, you're like, oh, okay, it just blocks, and then the inventory system is very like, oh, okay, cool. You just put stuff there. There's no item value per se. I mean, you obviously can store a certain amount of items in one block. Like, for example, with planks, you can have 64 planks in one block, and all that. But like, okay, cool. If I put this here, that stays there. If I put this here, that stays there, and then it just comes off very simple. It's easy to get into, but then if you want to get a bit deeper on how to manage your items, then it allows that flexibility.
It does. It's a good game. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned intuitiveness, Jude, because there is another debate / discussion point coming up to this one. Because now, as I said, late 90s, point and click was there, taking its stride. Late 90s saw also a huge kind of generational shift towards kind of the first RPG, computer RPG ones, the home RPG, computer RPG ones that like a lot of people would play. Even MMORPGs, we're starting off here now, like really like it's now the kind of initial stage of it, but it was soon to like ramp up really rapidly. Now I'm glad you mentioned intuitiveness because there was a huge debate at the time. Like even though they had storage space now, they didn't have so much. But there was a huge debate sparked when it's like the communities at that time really kind of argued, do they want limited inventory or unlimited inventory? So if you had to pick between those two, if I gave you the option, I could give you a game and you can have unlimited inventory. There's no limit to, what you can store, what you can carry, what you can have on you. Would you take that over limited inventory?
Personally, no. I would want the limited inventory. Why I say that is because it makes the game more interesting. If ever you stumble upon something and you pick it up, and I have one slot left in my inventory, it sort of reminds you, okay, I have to do something with this. It's not like you walk around everywhere and you have like hundreds of thousands of even millions of stuff just like in your invisible backpack or something like that. And you don't have to worry about, oh, maybe I can or smelt or whatever whatever term the game uses to call it, the item, and I can use it to upgrade another item. You just think, okay, let me just carry on getting until I feel like I have enough, and this is gonna be, it's gonna make things much easier for me. Nah. It also brings a sort of like an increased difficulty to the game, if that makes sense.
It does.
So it makes it more fun to play.
It does.
I feel.
Yeah, true. I guess it does provide more depth when you do have a limited inventory system. Like you said, like, just like if you find something which might seem valuable and you want to have it, you might feel the need that, okay, cool, I need to make space, but I have all these items. So, comes creativity. Okay, I could smelt it, or I could like modify it or upgrade it and do various things. But then if you have something unlimited, then you just pick up, and you never do anything with it. And then you just have a bunch of clutter.
Pretty much.
But I guess I could go back to the same question. So what category of game are you talking about? Like, if wanting the limited as opposed to the unlimited inventory system?
I don't know like about any there's literally only one genre I can think about where unlimited inventory could possibly work. Because I mean, unlimited inventory, I think the big thing about unlimited inventory, it's not a drawback, it's a consequence, but I wouldn't say it's a drawback, but it is a consequence. If you have unlimited inventory, you immediately devalue the economy of the game. Because the thing is, if I can limitlessly like collect everything around me, I can devalue this economy really fast because like I can just have everything. Now, MMORPGs have dabbled in this and still do dabble in this. For example, Elder Scrolls Online does this. There's literally unlimited inventory in Elder Scrolls Online. Nothing, like no limit whatsoever. But the thing is, where I think MMORPGs now kind of have a good trade-off here is it devalues the economy at face value. But for you to get all that unlimited inventory, the amount of time and effort that traditionally you have to spend in MMORPGs kind of, as the reverse of that. Because MMORPGs have this kind of traditional sense of grindy. They are grindy games. You grind for those resources. You go out there, you collect your super rare item or, set of armor or whatever, and it takes you 10 hours. So even though like you have this super valuable thing and you have unlimited inventory and you collect the rarest of resources and minerals or whatever else, the time it took you to get all that is literally kind of like paid back in the devaluation that you now have. So it's interesting. I don't think unlimited inventories has just that a lot of breathing room. There is some premises I could put it in. I think if you also have a game with a communal inventory, unlimited inventory would be nice. But in a sense that like it shouldn't devalue the game. It shouldn't make the game less difficult. It shouldn't take away from the gameplay. It like don't break the game, essentially. Don't break the game because you have unlimited inventory.
Yeah.
But that's the big thing. Obviously, it's a small debate they had, but I think sticking with the limited inventory was a better choice at the time because we just got a lot of things during that time. But there was some more issues that need to be addressed a little bit more urgent than this little side thing they had on. First off, now I say while kind of the point-and-click adventure games had your inventory in the HUD, and you had your inventory here in the HUD and it was accessible and you could see it all the time. RPGs couldn't really do that because, it's a different type of game. You need to explore. You want to access your inventory and all that stuff. So it was quite a new kind of sort of thing they needed to figure out. First off, when you pick up an item, right? Let's say you just walk around, pick up an item. Maybe it's loot. Maybe you killed an enemy. You got some nice loot and stuff. How do they represent, first off, the item? Because graphically you have to represent it. But also, how do they organize the item? Like, does it go to literally the front of the inventory? Does it go to the back of the inventory? Does it fall underneath a category? What's the best way to go about this here? And then, like, for the first few years, there was not really any structure towards this. I don't know if you guys have played RuneScape or World of Warcraft or have, like, seen it, but
I've seen World of Warcraft.
Have you seen those inventory screens?
No. I've just seen gameplay.
They're terrible. If that was World of Warcraft, I think it was inventory screen here. But now, obviously, you're accessing a menu. This isn't like while you're playing, but like inventory screen here for something, 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 inventory screen here for something. There's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. If I saw that, because yeah.
How does that even work though? Like, doesn't that interfere with gameplay?
Well, it's an inventory menu access at the time, but I'm thinking more like, how do you see? Like, how do you even see possibly what you want?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you have so many inventory like windows open, essentially speaking. How are you going to, deal with that? Like, in a sense, how are you going to deal with that?
It's it, and if you say, like, for example, you said you were OCD. Do you know how long it's gonna take to, like, for me to organize this screen, and then I'm gonna organize this screen, and then I'm gonna organize that screen. It can take like all my game time I have that I was like putting aside for gaming at night, and I'm gonna be like storing my inventory.
Oh my days!
I think it's just a general problem. Some people, just bite the bullet and go through with it because a lot of people still play World of Warcraft and RuneScape and other ones, but genuinely, from my standpoint, I don't think I can sit through a game and look at that and think that's acceptable. But yeah, they had to kind of figure something out. It's nicer to have something more standardized. Like, I don't say everything needs to be standardized, but I do think inventory kind of needs to have some rules, I guess. It's nice to have some rules or kind of some sort of approach you want to do to it. And a very unlikely game actually started a kind of nice approach to this. It was the Pokemon series, actually, 1998, that really gave the first kind of nice structured approach to inventory that we see these days. No, it was kind of visual. I think this was the Gold and Silver games, and I can't remember if those games were in black and white or if it was a color game, but I think it was a black and white game. But it had a graphical display of the inventory, but the big thing it had categories. You had your, I don't know what you have in Pokemon games. You have your, like, consumables, I guess. And then you have, like, your equipment, I guess your Pokeballs. and then you have like stuff. But the thing is, it categorized everything for you, so it's way easier, to go look in the category, obviously, of where you have it, and the thing you picked up is the most recent thing in your inventory. Because obviously the thing you
Oh.
pick up is most likely what you want to be using, or at least what you might want to be looking at. Because that's just what it is. You pick up a shiny thing and you obviously want to know, what's that? You go look at it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first structural kind of approach we saw to it, and structural kind of implementations of it. And just make navigation of inventory easier. I mean, you don't want to spend the whole game navigating inventory, and unless you do want to, but that's weird. But you don't want to spend the whole game really navigating inventory. You want to play the game. Second issue is kind of the thing about inventory was quite limited. Now, I'm not talking about the concept of limited inventory, where like we discussed now, like limited inventory is better compared to unlimited inventory. This is like inventory was limited, like really limited. So it's just at that point, even for MMORPGs and stuff, you could only carry like 20 or 30 items. I don't know about you,
I mean,
but
isn't that the general thing now?
it's kind of, but it's more like now we portray it as realism, where 20 and 30 items we say, oh, that's realistic, because I mean, if you have to, you can't carry more than that, or that makes it more fair to gameplay. Back then, that's physically what they could manage. They couldn't manage more than that. That's literally what they could do. So
Okay.
I think from if you think about the games at that point, again, like obviously World of Warcraft now is like blown up and everything, but if you think about the RPGs mostly and computer RPGs at that point, 20 or 30 items isn't a lot. It sounds a lot, but it's not really a lot if you take into account like everything you do tend to carry in RPGs. Like you can I'm pretty much willing to bet you can loot a Draugr whatever dungeon in Skyrim and you're gonna come back with like 50 items. There's no way you're just like walking out there with 20. There's no way. But yeah, no, it's a prickly thing. Obviously, if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. But if it does bother you, it does bother you. It's kind of a preference thing. But again, you have quite a vocal aspect of it, because this is like a core concept of a game where it can affect everything, because now it's a physical problem. But yeah, it's just a prickly issue, and we had to bring more solutions forward of this. But yeah, also perfect that mentioned this in Minecraft. That was an inventory system that had to be invented at RPG at first. The kind of off-site storage system, where in Minecraft it would be chests and stuff. RPGs had to do the same. Usually nowadays, when you play RPGs, the likelihood is you visit a town, you go to an inn, there's a chest in the inn, and you can put your items in the chest, and you can keep it there. That's kind of like almost a traditional thing in RPGs now, where literally all that meant was they can put your items there, save the state of the items, but you can go to another town and stuff, and like they can like now recycle the memory. And it was just a clever way to keep the game going, so you can collect more inventory per se, because now you've recycled the memory and you still have your items available to you in the other town in the inn safely there. So it was just a kind of workaround there to do it. I think Breath of Fire was the first game, kind of obscure game, 1993. But yeah, more or less kind of the just another kind of workaround at that point, and an alternative. But some people, as I said, actually put in my notes here, Minecraft is one of the games that adopted us that you see to this day. Tribes of Midgard also did that. I don't know if you guys have played Tribes of Midgard. Also really cute, little wonderful game.
No.
Oof, you guys
You
need to
played
play
a
more
lot of
games.
games. Now you played a lot of games.
I've played. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I do have played a lot of games, but yeah, Tribe of Midgard is kind of a very cool game for what you see in 2020, 2021. It's kind of a top-down isometric. What's it? A dungeon crawler essentially, because it's randomly generated, so it'll be a dungeon crawler procedure generated world. But it's a top-down one, kind of traditional. You just walking around like Vikings and stuff, but it has this kind of communal chest, because usually you play 2 to 10 players in a server, and then you have a communal chest where communal inventory is stored. And it's just to give yourself more inventory and space and stuff like that. But yeah, just quite a nice little game you don't see anymore these days. So yeah, but it's clever. If you guys do want to try that out, that's a really kind of fun game to play with, like an hour or two with friends. It's challenging as well. It's a really difficult game, but it's fun.
Mm.
At the end of
I did what?
at the end of the day, um, it's more about enjoying the game with friends. Sorry, I'm completely drifting off the topic. I was thinking about you recommending the game to us and
But no,
playing
I'm
it as well.
genuinely serious. It's a good game. You should play it. It is a good game.
Okay.
And it's cross-platform. Actually, we should play it at some point because
Oh.
generally I would pick it up probably at some point again. It's a nice game.
Okay.
I'll make a mental
Hit us
note of
up.
that
Hit us
one.
up.
What?
Hit us
Hit us
up.
up.
Is it what? Sorry, I can't hear.
Oh, hit us up. Like hit us up whenever you want to play.
Oh yeah, no, well, I will. It's really I'll show you the basics. I die on like day 3, so don't think I'm a professional. But I'll show you the basics.
Sweet, man.
But yeah, it's kind of also a thing like this was, as I said, it's a workaround, it's an alternative, but it does have its fair share of issues. Now I know kind of this is also a user issue that I'm about to mention, but like imagine this, like at the end of the game, you're about to face a huge, scary final boss. You're kind of prepped, you're mentally prepped. You say, oh, do I have my health potions? Yeah. Do I have my, all my, equipment? Yeah. Do I have my beautiful enchanted sword? Oh no, I left it in the town halfway across the map in the chest because I couldn't keep it. Oh, I've got to run all the way back there, get the thing, and then come back for the boss. So it's an alternative, but it has its flaws in it, as it's not as accessible as other inventories are, might be. So that was kind of the first kind of, I'd say, hole in the solution. Not to like burst a bubble yet. And then memories in games did improve. Obviously, we entered the 2000s, and memories again significantly improved for games at this point. And we talked again about inventories are limited. It was another discussion. People put it down. They say, there's just something about limited inventories that makes a game a game, and there's like a lot more that you can do with that rather than with unlimited inventories. But it's more at the 2000s point. We were talking about inventories in a sort of immersive light. Now we're talking about like 90s, 80s, and stuff like that. I mean, at that point, games were fun, and they were games, but I can't really say that there was a game at that point that was immersive. Immersive games only really started emerging at the turn of the century because that's just what we were capable of at the time. I'm sure you can immerse yourself in the world, like in the 90s or 80s game. I'm pretty sure you can, but it's just not the same. I think if you, for example, play any, I don't know what you guys like. Like, do you guys like single player games? Because I like, for example, God of War.
I really like single player games. So
I mean, yeah, that's where I started as well.
Yeah. So, for example, if you boot up, what's one of the first single player games you played?
I think it's called I'm Going In.
Okay, that's a good title.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's something in my throat. Yeah. The first single player game I played was Medal of Honor. Yeah, I was like 7.
Oh my gosh.
I was 7. Yeah, and it was one of the original ones on the PlayStation 2.
Now imagine like, I don't know how you immerse yourself in I'm Going In because I'm having all the wrong thoughts in my head. But let's take Medal of Honor as an example, so that I don't like keep my composure here. But like, take Medal of Honor as an example. You were 7 years old. You're playing a war game. Kind of the whole point of Medal of Honor is to put you in that environment. Like, it's literally crap's hit the fan. It's World War II. You're out there, out for conscription, and like it's feuding. And the whole point of the game is to kind of place yourself in the boots of a soldier, and you probably as a 7-year-old felt like, oh my gosh, I'm really in World War II. I'm fighting here for my life here. It's kind of how you probably felt.
Yes.
Now, as I said, at the turn of the century, I could see this for games. They're just starting to build that immersion and stuff like that. Like as I said, I don't write off 80s and 90s games, but I don't think they have immersive qualities to them. I think there was kind of like you enjoy the game, but you enjoy the game from a detached perspective. Like if I'm playing, what do I play actually? That's from the 80s or 90s. I guess Age of Empires technically, but I don't think that was 90s. But if I'm playing Age of Empires, I don't feel immersed in Age of Empires. I'm very detached, but I'm enjoying it. It's just that I don't have that immersion like I'm from the freaking 1600s, 1700s. I'm like taking on the French army or whatever. That's not what I'm feeling when I'm playing the game. Where I think the 2000s and onwards, games really got into the stride when it came to that. But that's debatable. Obviously, every person might feel different about that.
Another game that I really liked as well as a kid was Metal Slug.
Metal Slug, I've heard of that name, but I can't remember
Yeah,
what
the
that
arcade
game is.
one. The arcade one. The arcade one. You know it.
I
Like, if
do
you
know
Google
it, but I
you know
can't
which
remember
game.
what it's about.
Basically just shooting.
Yeah,
Basically just shooting. It's similar to Contra. Similar to Contra, but a bit more
Any arcade
modernized.
game is literally shooting at this point because it's what all the arcade games were. And if they weren't that, it was the fighting one where you and your buddy were just mashing the buttons like this.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, you're just shooting, and then
Yeah.
you find maybe like a heavy machine gun, and you just go ham.
Perfect with the sound effects. Nice.
We got for that immersion.
But
Yeah.
was Metal Slug at least one of those games where that it was the arcade machine with the actual plastic gun? It wasn't one of those.
Oh,
it was the plastic gun.
nah.
No, it wasn't the plastic gun.
No, it wasn't the plastic gun.
Oh.
It was the one where you're just using the joystick and the buttons, you're just bashing the buttons as hard as you can.
Yeah.
This was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I was kind of. I tried to immerse myself in the game, because every game I played, I was like, okay, cool. Because even with I'm going in, it's an FPS. It's a shooter game, with the storyline. So you start off as this agent, and you have to infiltrate a site or something in the first mission.
Oh, that's what I'm going.
Yeah,
okay, now I get it. It's like
I'm going in as well. I'm going
it's
in.
It's the kind of Hollywood thing. I'm going in. It's okay.
Yeah, that type of vibe. That type of vibe.
now.
You're some secret soldier, super spy soldier, and you're trying to. But I had the demo version, so I didn't even have the full game, so I could only play the first mission, and that was it.
But yeah, it's an immersive.
But it was FPS. Yeah, it was FPS. I mean, FPS. I guess the whole concept of FPS was just or first person games, or just to give you that immersion. To see in first person, increase the immersion. It made it more tense, and had your heart racing.
You're getting nostalgic about this, aren't you?
It was a good game. It was a good game. I enjoyed it. I remember the first time I played it, my dad was around, and I was like, "God damn, it's a crazy dope game right there." And my mom was like, "Yeah, turn that off. There's too much violence and stuff."
Yeah, you're not allowed to play it anymore.
Well, with her around now, but then eventually she just got tired of telling me to stop, playing it. But yeah, I think I played that first mission a billion times at this point. Yeah, because it was just the only game I had for a while.
Yeah, I stopped.
I had a Pentium 40.
I stopped playing games with my parents at a not very young age, but I stopped playing games in front of my parents because at some point I got into RPGs, and RPGs are kind of weird. You never knew when they were gonna be boobies.
What to expect.
Well, if they were boobies, because the thing is, you can play the game, and 90% of the gameplay is you taking down dragons and taking down skeletons and adventure and stuff, and then the 10% is that booby lady walking around or having a cutscene with her, and then they come into your room, or then they walk past the TV.
Bro,
how do you explain that?
Yeah.
But it's not what you think. It's not what you think.
Doesn't work. I've tried it. Anyway, but immersion at the turn of the century, big thing here, immersion, and it prompted also a lot more kind of, I'd say, work development on inventory systems. A lot more kind of thinking went into it, because it wasn't just now the purpose of mechanizing a way to kind of use your items, manage your items, see what you've collected and all that. It was kind of now forming part of the game. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to talk about a few genres and stuff like that still coming up, but a lot of games relied on this kind of now decided limited inventory thing, not only as a gameplay and a challenge, as you guys mentioned, difficulty would have gone away if it was unlimited. Limited inventories do present some challenge to it, but it also affects your play style. So imagine this, if you have limited inventory, let's say 30 items, take a random game, Skyrim. You usually go into the game, first things you choose in the game is your race. Are you Argonian, Nord, Breton, whatever you are. You go into the thing, you choose kind of what class, I guess, you're going to be. Like, are you going to be, well, you choose it while you play, but like, are you going to be a two-handed big brute guy? Are you going to be a one-handed, like, fast-paced warrior? Are you going to be a stealthy bowman? Are you going to be a magicka user? Like, there's a lot of options, but it's a play style, and it's going to be how you play during the game. So the likelihood of what you're putting in your inventory is going to match your play style. You won't, as a brute, really find it helpful if I'm like putting scrolls of teleportation in my inventory as a brute, because I'm not going to need that. I'm going to need potions of stamina.
Yeah.
I'm going to need like a lot of food because I need to up my stamina, up my health probably. I'm going to need heavy armor, so that's going to probably take up a lot of my inventory weight as well. There's decisions I'm making consciously because of my playstyle that's being kind of dictating how I'm using my inventory. And that's just how kind of a clever way games started to, or developers started to think about their games. Like, how could they use this to their advantage? And that was kind of RPGs, obviously. Very, like, a lot of things you can see there with inventory really coming through. But, yeah, it's also, like, for other games as well. Like, how strict are you with limiting your inventory? Like, I talked about the traditional weapon wheel thing at the beginning of the podcast. Now, the weapon wheel, obviously, in all of its contexts that you can think of, the weapon wheel is not realistic for a shooting game. You can't carry 8 weapons. Because that's not something that happens.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a sandbox game, like what GTA technically is, it's a sandbox game, or if you're playing a more chaotic casual shooter like, let's say, Far Cry, having a weapon wheel kind of fits the style of your gameplay and the gameplay itself more than trying to tell the person, okay, you can only have 2 weapons. Like, if you had to play through the entirety of GTA 5 and you were only allowed to carry a sidearm and a primary weapon, do you think that game would have been like anywhere close as successful as it is currently?
I mean, no.
I mean,
No, perfect, you say?
no, you can go ahead. I think you spoke first.
Okay. I would say no. Like 100% say no, because if you think about it, the main reason why GTA is still, alive in a sense,
Yeah.
if I can say that, is because of GTA Online. And most of the features that are added to the online mode is the extra weapons that characters can get, or players can get,
Yeah.
players can get,
Pretty much.
being some weird gun that just somehow propels you
OP.
forward.
It's just OP, and
And
it's like everyone wants to have it, so they just
exactly. So like those type of weapons, you see, and so 100% GTA would not be the same game if things were different, I would say.
I think it's just like the premise of GTA, because a lot of kind of, even I remember in the single player and even just during the missions, like, how else, in what other game would you logically can you chuck like 25 sticky bombs into traffic and just create general chaos because GTA is the whole premise of, like, even if you're not like doing particularly anything, most of the times you're like, oh, how can I get 5 stars really quickly? Oh, I know how. I'm gonna chuck sticky bombs into traffic the whole time. But realistically,
Yeah.
you can't carry 25 kilograms worth of C4 around. Like, first off, you get noticed, and you probably get reported to the authorities immediately. But unless you're a suicide bomber strapping it to yourself, that's not carryable. Like, it's just not. So, it's the premise of, it's just taking a little bit of a relaxation of limiting your inventory and the immersive qualities of inventory to allow gameplay to kind of have a more fluid way of it. Just to allow gameplay. And some games do make the conscious decision of that. And yeah, I talked a little bit about this in the beginning. The kind of, as I said, now the immersive things have talked about inventory systems, but some games are also still feeling out what type of inventory systems they like. Like the 90s saw also a really nice inventory system called size-based inventory system. That's the one I was talking about, like where, this is why I said Tetris is an inventory management game, because this one's actually called inventory Tetris, because you're Tetrising how the hell you want to put your items to fit it into, like, so you can carry as much as you can. So, like, Have you ever played one of those games where like you have to like literally like the size of your item matters and like you have to put it inside of the inventory squares and stuff like that?
I mean, the most similar thing that I could
Diablo has
possibly
one.
like compare to it would be one of those games where you'd have to essentially speaking add numbers together, if that makes sense. So you'd start off with like 2 and then it climbs
Oh
all the way
yes,
to
you
like
mean the phone game, the 2048 one?
yes. Yeah.
That one, yes.
That's the one that I could probably like
That's also a
say
size-based inventory game, yeah.
yeah,
So
essentially speaking, yeah.
if you were a Diablo player, you probably were very familiar with the size-based player system because that was also one where like you had to fit all your weapons and armor and stuff into squares. And what's really depressing is you can have these really cool chest plates, but then like take half your inventory because of their size, and you're like, oh, I want this thing, but it doesn't fit. And then like you try and Tetris it, but there's no way you can make it work.
Yeah.
Size-based inventory was kind of, as I said, it was a little blip. I really like it. I don't know why I really like it, but I really like the concept of you sitting there just trying to because realistically, like it's not the number of items in real life. I'm talking really about real life. Apart from like weight, take weight out of the equation. In real life, a backpack is not really about how many items you have in your backpack. It's about how you put the items in your backpack. If I'm gonna go and like take this for example. If I'm gonna go and like I put it in a backpack like this down, chances are I'm gonna have space in front of it here for something else or like around the sides and stuff. But if I go and put it like this, like I know it doesn't look like it's a difference, but now like it might be too wide for the backpack and it can't really fit in. It makes a difference. So for me,
it does make a difference.
I don't know, like it's just fun to think about a game like that. But it wasn't just like the random Diablo and stuff like that worked like that. Some games also kind of interestingly dabbled in this. Another game that did it is Deus Ex, the first Deus Exes. I don't know if you guys have played Deus Ex.
I haven't played the first one, but I have played Deus Ex Machine Guy, if I remember correctly. I think that's the name. Was it Mankind Divided?
Mankind Divided. That's the one I played.
Yeah, Mankind Divided.
Interesting one as well. I haven't played any. I have
Jeez, man.
dabbled Human Revolution, but Mankind Divided is the one I really played. So Deus Ex actually was cool about this. It had the kind of thing that you guys wanted about the kind of it automatically does it for you. So when you have the size-based thing, what was cool is you pick up an item in Deus Ex and it literally automatically configured the size-based thing for you in the best possible way so that you can have the most space possible. It kind of defeats the purpose of it, but it just looked really cool watching all your weapons go like that and then like rearrange. It does defeat the purpose of it because it's kind of your job, but still, it just looked really cool. Other one actually really interestingly, and it was a really praised decision at the time. Resident Evil 4 did it as well. The survival game. It was because I think the first 3 were just a general, like, literally inventory screen, and then Resident Evil 4 came around and was like, nah, we're gonna try something else. We're gonna have these size-based inventory systems, which makes it even more intense and terrifying, I think, because now you're panicking like, oh my gosh, I can't fit because you need typewriter ink to save. You literally had to pick up typewriter ink to save in Resident Evil 4 and others, I think. So you had to have that in your inventory to actually save the game at some points. So you had to fit that in. So that always takes an inventory slot. And then you had like obviously your weapons. That takes an inventory slot. But you've got like a big rocket launcher, which is like an OP weapon in the game. I mean, you can imagine how big a rocket launcher is going to take space. So I thought that was really interesting for me from a point perspective. And I think that was probably the best decision. But yeah, there's a little bit of dabbling. But yeah, there's the more traditional one we all know, the grid-based one. All the little tiles of an item in it, and one item goes into the tile, or a stack of items goes into the tile, and that represents a slot or space in your inventory and stuff like that. But yeah, so as I said, now we started also in the turn of the century, we went into immersion. There was more to think about than just this. Not every single game and genre out there can just use the same inventory system. It doesn't work. Battle Royale games, again, you guys mentioned. You can't have an RPG inventory system in a Battle Royale game. That's gonna be, well, very, very frantic then. Can't imagine you trying to scroll across, trying to put your health potion down while you're being shot at, that wouldn't work. So, for example, FPS games at the time, like at the early time, FPS games, kind of funny enough, use the point and click HUD one at first, the one with the bar about here. If you think about, if you've ever seen screenshots or played the old Doom and Wolfenstein games, you literally have a HUD here that has like the picture of the guy that says his health was here, how much ammo you had for each gun, and your guns could like, you can equip them and whatever. But it literally, all your inventory sat in a HUD like this and took up part of your screen. Not really practical, I guess. Like, it's not really nice for an FPS to do that, but at the time, that's all I had. And then, yeah, well, how do I put it? One of the games that freaking literally almost invented everything in history, you know, sort of another great thing, where it actually, you know, the Minecraft hotbar you're talking about? There was an FPS game that invented that in 1998. I'm pretty sure you can guess this one if you think nicely about it.
Like, I'm not a Minecraft player, so you know you're asking the wrong person.
Just literally a hotbar, like just the hotbar. The concept of hotbar was invented by FPS game, 1998. Very popular FPS game. The people who made this game are kind of.
I mean, is it made by Valve? Like, just give me a hint. Is it made by Valve?
It's made by Valve.
Valve. Made by Valve, right?
Yeah.
Half-Life?
Hey man, you stole my answer.
Half-Life. Literally the people who invented the game who invented everything. Half-Life did this as well. Half-Life invented.
Oh.
You know what else Half-Life invented? I mentioned this also in my other podcast. You know what else Half-Life invented? The conventional concept that we use the WASD keys.
You use what?
WASD. WASD. So traditionally, it was an option in games, but your defaults in games were usually the arrows, and then Half-Life did the other way around. So, but like people use the mouse with their right hand, so wouldn't it be easier if we just make WASD the default? And people are like, oh yeah, that's probably easier.
That makes sense.
I mean, for me, I started with the arrows. I remember every game I used to play, I would reconfigure the controls to use the arrows. But then I didn't like the fact that like there was so much like space on the left on my keyboard. So I ended up just like getting used to using WASD, then because also like other things you could access, you know, they're like more like a finger stretch away or thumb stretch away to access some of the other like keys and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's just two quick tidbits. But like, if you actually delve into the history, Half-Life is pretty much responsible for half of everything in gaming currently. That game is like, I don't know. I don't know how they managed to do that, because that game almost invented everything in terms of FPS, at least. I swear. I don't know where we would be without it, but oh well. I think that game's already had enough praise. But in our context, this was not called the hotbar, obviously, at that point. It was called the utility belt. Almost imagine like what a utility belt is, because like you got a pocket here, pocket here, pocket here, pocket here, and you can access your stuff really quickly. But like you access it with the numbers, obviously in Half-Life and stuff like that. I think CS:GO as well. I haven't played CS:GO in a while, but I think also the numbers in CS:GO like access your items.
Yes, access certain items using the numbers.
Yeah, that's how I learned it, at least, because I played Half-Life before I played CS:GO, so I was like always pressing 3 or something for my grenades. Not probably probably mouse wheel would be very quicker, but I was always like, the problem with me with Half-Life is I don't play like mouse and keyboard, so like my attention is never here when I'm playing CS:GO. I'm literally like typing the key because I couldn't remember where the key is. I'm like trying to find the key for my grenade stone, and I'm getting shot at already. So I've never had a good experience with keyboard and mouse. But oh well.
I mean, that's the general chat with most people, right? Even when I started playing, it was it was very difficult for me to get on keyboard and mouse, because I wasn't very my hand-eye coordination wasn't top notch. So it does make sense.
Yeah. No, I know. But again, I've had it all before. You'll get used to it and everything. No. Just give me a controller. No. Give me a controller. It's fine.
Well, I was about to say the same thing. You just have to get used to it.
No, no, it's not. It's not. It's not normal. No. Anyway, the other thing also that was kind of very convenient at the time, but now this was something that the console people invented, so don't take credit for it. The quick select in gaming. You know the quick select in gaming where like, okay, you have your utility belt and stuff, but this was like the utility belt is usually like those are items that are pre-configured. So usually like 3 was meant for grenades and it was meant for grenades. You can't like at this point in time you couldn't bind stuff. There wasn't really binding per se. Like you could select like alternatives, for example, southpaw controls, or like I said with the arrows and the WASD keys, you can select like between them. But it wasn't like you could bind a key at this point in most games. So 3 almost always was grenades, 2 was secondary weapon, 1 was primary weapon, whatever. But in console, we obviously don't have a hotbar to like scroll around. So what do? We got a quick select item where like these where's this thing? These ones obviously now would go and like have a quick select item, and you can like choose your item now based on this and like have it really handy really quickly. But we can choose now what item we want to configure to. First game to do that, funny enough, Ratchet and Clank. So props to that. I didn't actually think that would be a game that I'd ever mention on this podcast, but well done, Ratchet and Clank. For
Ratchet and Clank is a good game.
It's a good game. I just don't think. I don't think like in human history it's like, oh my gosh, guys, Ratchet and Clank. How would we ever survive humankind or video games without it? It's not like one of those games. Like I can't say Half-Life and then talk about Ratchet and Clank 30 seconds later. Kind of feels weird. So, but yeah, no, props to Ratchet and Clank. It did a really convenient thing for console players. So yeah, and that solves the issue for a lot of games. You know, as I talked about, FPS games, intense, fast gameplay. Even battle royale games, intense, fast gameplay. We needed fast access to inventory. We needed to kind of have this thing where like it's almost instant. We can configure it, and it was just at our fingertips essentially. But now again, immersion. Another thing it brought at this point was now there was actually now a thing about realism. As I talked about, now we moved past the whole physical limitations of limited inventory in the 90s. We're talking about the 2000s now. This is about limiting inventories because it's realistic. And obviously challenging, whatever, but now realistic. So, yeah, we wanted to go from reducing the size of inventories, and that's just like general stuff you can think about. How much can you carry yourself? What's a realistic weight for people? You know, what's the kind of realistic thing you can expect in video games? So FPS games at this time, like they were all kind of casual. Like Doom guy was carrying like 6 weapons at a time, and Wolfenstein guy was also carrying like 6 weapons at a time. Even Half-Life's guy with its hotbar and all the convenient stuff was also carrying like 4 weapons. Like, there was a shotgun, a pistol, a plasma rifle, and whatever else. Not realistic again. So there had to be a core concept, and again, a very standardized thing once again in video games, because now it's like everywhere. There's barely any shooter games or like realistic, let's say realistic first-person shooters out there that doesn't follow this norm. The 2-weapon system. And traditionally, actually, it would have been a primary weapon and a sidearm. Now it's more, you can have 2 primary weapons, but again, traditionally, 2 weapons at a time. Literally. I want to take a guess at what game invented that. 2001. It's
what year did it come out?
2001. Very famous franchise, still going today. Last game I think that came out for it was, it was either this year or last year. The latest game in the franchise. So a long-running franchise.
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft, the franchise.
Assassin's Creed.
2001? Nah,
wait, 2009 is when Assassin's Creed came out. Oh,
hold up. Did you say Assassin's Creed is a shooter?
Oh, it's a shooter. No, I made a mistake. No. I was thinking about a long franchise and
2001 shooter, still popular.
Still popular. They released the games last year, or like
released the game last year.
Last year, yeah.
Exclusive.
And it's a popular franchise.
Exclusive franchise.
Wait, is this
Exclusive.
like a console exclusive?
I don't think so. No. Well, not.
Oh,
It's
okay.
exclusive, but it's not console exclusive.
Call of Duty?
That's not exclusive though.
Exclusive. Exclusive to a specific. You say exclusive to a specific platform?
I don't know. Like I know it's okay. Well, in fact, it's not on the PS, the PlayStation. I don't know if it's on PC, but it's not on the PlayStation. I can tell you that. That should give it away though.
Mm.
A shooter that's not on the
Jeez, man.
PlayStation. That's very popular.
Yes.
CS.
No.
CS talk, really.
Hold on.
I think you overthinking
Shooter.
this, mate. Think like an Xbox exclusive. That's well, not an Xbox exclusive.
Oh, Halo.
Halo.
Ah.
Halo was the
Damn.
first game in history to ever introduce the two-weapon system.
Really?
2001. Yeah. It was also the first
Jeez.
FPS in history to have health regen. Where like
Yeah, I think it used to be crazy though in the past.
yeah. No, I
Hey,
think
man. Gents will just write it out.
Yeah.
there was
it's cool.
it's a flesh wound. I'll go on. It's fine.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, Halo Combat Evolved 2001, huge game at the time again for FPS because it standardized now the two-weapon system and the health regen. But it got so much fundamentals right as a game that I think it's just made its mark really. I don't think as a franchise it probably should have died about 2 Halos ago, but very important for its time. So yeah, the two-weapon system came around, and realism was kind of the norm now for FPSs. We weren't talking about kind of comical, cartoonish things anymore. A lot of because after that, I mean, then you got the running wildfire that is Call of Duty, and they've been doing two-weapon systems like since the dawn of time. You got Battlefield, that's been doing two-weapon systems since the dawn of time, and it's also still doing that. Like a lot of shooters were just starting to pick up this kind of standard because they thought like this makes sense. But yeah, they thought okay, two weapons. This is gonna be a more grounded, realistic experience, and it's gonna allow people to kind of have this feeling of I can only carry two guns at a time, or can they? Because you know how gamers are. We like to have our little workarounds and technically cheating, but not really cheating stuff because we exploit stuff in games.
Mhm.
I'm hoping you guys actually know this mechanism because this is actually from right up your alley. It's CS:GO, Valorant. You do this apparently. I haven't played Valorant, so you might not do this, but I know you do this in CS:GO. Weapon juggling. You know weapon juggling.
Of course.
I was hoping that would ring a bell because yeah, it's also one of the first like exploits we'd ever see in that kind of system. And it also makes pretty sick plays. Not gonna lie. A weapon juggling play is also very nice to look at,
Mhm. Yeah. So a little fun activity just before the game starts, Gotta warm up them arms one way, right?
Oof. The moms, eh?
Hmm?
The moms.
No.
Did you say the moms or the lungs? I didn't hear properly.
Oh no! I'll say it's a great way to like warm up your arms just
Your
before
arms. I heard the
your
moms.
virtual arms.
I
Yeah.
also heard
What?
moms, dude. I also heard
What?
moms.
You had moms?
Yeah, I heard
Warm up the
moms, bro. I'm
That's
not
moms.
it,
gonna lie to
moms.
you. I heard moms, bro.
Oh,
Warm up them
oh.
moms. Let me show
No,
them
warm
my
up your
cool
arms
ass.
before the
How
game.
I'm gonna chuck this RPG through the sky, pick up the orb. Shoot that guy. It's gonna be the greatest play in
Yeah.
history. But yeah, no, this is kind of the point I think where FPS really kind of moved towards what it is now. Realistic, grounded mostly, and it has its limits. It has standardized limits now, even for your general stuff like grenades and equipment and stuff like that. Like it usually has like Call of Duty obviously has that very famous one we know, the class based thing. Obviously you can go and manipulate it, but it's like you have a loadout and it's like one space for grenade, one space for this, 3 space for perks, one weapon, another weapon, secondary attachments on the weapon, and it all takes like up an inventory slot. But it had this more approach of we wanted to be more grounded, more realistic. So yeah, it was another thing. And RPGs also started to think about it, like, RPGs, I know RPGs is a fantasy setting, and it's kind of a more imaginative gaming experience. But fantasy, like RPGs started to think about, well, what if we want to be a more realistic system of inventory? So they came up with a pretty clever one. You see it in a few of them now. I think more now in survival RPGs, but it was a little bit in traditional RPGs in the beginning. The weight-based inventory system. Although most of like our exposure to that obviously is Skyrim or Fallout. Pretty much the two ones that really started that. Where it's like, it's not really about how many items you carry, but it's how much you carry that now kind of is a thing to think about. Because carry too much and it starts to affect you. You like become over encumbered, you're really slow. Chances are you can't fast travel, you can't use certain items. They're kind of like they've made a consequence of hoarding too much inventory at some point. So, but they did have some compromises. Obviously, I think for most of them, coins and arrows don't count weight. I think those are the two big ones that usually don't count any weight. And ammo, obviously, for Fallout. Ammo doesn't count weight. So it was an interesting kind of approach. Although I will put a little bit of a spanner in the works and maybe get some thoughts from you. I don't think Skyrim needed a weight-based component, to be honest. I think Skyrim as a game would have been better if we instead said you can carry 30 items, not carry 200 kgs.
Nah, like as you said before, it gives it sort of like that consequence of carrying too much items. Again,
it does.
We don't like hoarding. Well, personally, I don't like hoarding. Sort of makes the game unorganized and such. But the consequence of carrying too much, like if you sort of like bring in that realism, you get heavy. Like, have you ever tried carrying someone who's like 100 kgs? I know I have. My back was proper gone. But yeah, it sort of brings that realistic aspect to it as well. So
okay,
yeah,
but
I would agree with.
I would agree with it, but I would have liked to have seen at least a more traditional approach to that. I think Fallout does it really well. I like the idea of Fallout doing it because that's a type of, again, I don't know. I like weight-based components in survival RPGs, where it's more about like it's survival. It's more about the core components of your physical. Almost the whole game is about your physical state. Literally, like almost the whole game. You spend the whole game collecting food, building fortification. Making sure all your health is good, up to standard, and stuff like that. And I think like adding weight components to your inventory makes sense for that because now you have to choose your priorities and stuff about the state of your health and stuff like that. I like that idea. I don't feel like I like that a lot in my traditional RPGs. But again, preference. What about you, Mr. Perfect?
I think the weighted system just made it unique.
It did.
Weighted inventory system made it unique. So, I mean, I think it was the first game where I played, which had a weighted inventory system. Because it just prevented me from hoarding.
I didn't know about it until I obviously like reached its limits. Like see, at that point, maybe that's where my hate comes from. Like I played a lot of RPGs, and I played Skyrim, and I thought, it's amazing and stuff. And like I started collecting items because I couldn't see a limit. And then my guy started like walking really slow, and I got killed. I was like, this is a dumb method. What's this?
Okay. But why do you say you didn't need it? I'm curious to hear why you say you did.
Put the traditional, like I don't know, like if you, other than obviously managing your inventory because of the weight, I don't feel like it adds value to the game. Like I don't feel like the fact that it's weight based adds for me so much value to the game that I feel like, oh, this was a good choice. Like I don't feel like you could have maybe they just did want to try something new at the time, because I mean, it is no, Fallout 3 did it first, but still, it was something they wanted to try at the time. Maybe they wanted to see how it works, because I mean, Morrowind and Oblivion I think didn't have this, but they wanted to try it at the time, see how it is. But I don't feel like you would have gained or lost any value had you just stuck to the traditional system. But it's not really something that's gonna, kind of lessen my how I see or view Skyrim, or like how I enjoy its gameplay and stuff like that. I think it's still completely like okay to do it that way. So,
but then again, you say that it probably wouldn't have changed your view on it, but we'll never really know, unless they actually added, like they added that like limitation.
They could, but at this point, they shouldn't re-release Skyrim for the 30th time. They should just make Elder Scrolls 6. I can't wait anymore. But
everyone's waiting for Elder Scrolls 6.
Everyone's waiting for GTA 6. Which one's gonna come out first, though?
6 is the magical number.
6 is the magical
Which
number.
one will come out? Which will come out first?
Or will I die first?
That's a really good
pretty
question.
much the race now. Can I live up until the point where before this releases or whatever?
Can I outlive?
Probably not.
Can I outlive the wait?
Yeah.
Essentially speaking.
Yeah, but again, as I said, it does. There is significant value, I think, in also a way that's inventory system in your game is treated and stuff like that. Like, at this point, like it just you need to be very like intricate about how you treat your inventory system and stuff like that. Even like the little change, like I said, like for me, Skyrim wouldn't have really gone much difference either way. But there is noticeable differences in a lot of video games that, at least on surface level, looks almost identical. So I'm gonna give an example, and kind of awkward because if you didn't play these two games, it's not gonna really work as an example, but oh well. So I'm gonna talk about two survival RPGs. One is called, you might know this little game. It's called The Forest. And there's a game called Stranded Deep as well. Please tell me you guys know The Forest at least. I was actually hoping you guys said, yeah, I know The Forest.
Unfortunately,
sorry to disappoint, man.
Once again,
like honestly, you'll probably mention like
a lot of games that
and
we
then
haven't
would
played.
know like 2 or 3 out of the 10. Because okay, you've been gaming, bro.
I'm making a mental note of that. You guys need to play The Forest.
So many games we need to play at this point.
There's 2 now, so I'm going to keep those in mind. Because I think Forest is also crossplay, so that's what I'm keeping it in mind. Very good game. Very, well, not scary, but very intense game. But very nice. So yeah, 2 survival games, Stranded Deep and The Forest. On surface level, these games pretty much look like your standard survival RPG game. Like, even if you look at both of them, their premise, it just doesn't look like, there's so much difference. But I'm willing to like argue their inventory system alone and the way the game plays kind of dictates the inventory system. Like, it made that much of a difference. So I'm going to run through both of them. The Forest is a game, you plane crash essentially in the middle of the woods, and there's this whole story about now you're trying to survive, but there's cannibals everywhere. Like, you're literally in a situation where, again, craps hit the fan, and you gotta literally make do with what you have. Like, this is serious stuff, and like, you're under threat the whole time, Forest is kind of where but also the Forest has a big base building component. Like, Forest was one of those first ever kind of base building games, because you get a lot of survival RPG games, but then they're more oriented towards base building. For example, Rust. Rust is a huge game with base building. It doesn't really focus on survival that much. It has a huge thing about base building. And the same with quite a few games, but like, yeah, that's just one core component. So everyone's more focused about like, building the base and stuff and fortifying their stuff and that. But with the Forest, then you have a very relaxed inventory. More relaxed. The backpack is kind of, even for survival RPG, I'm still thinking like, you can't really carry all that, but okay. It's not really that much of a issue because most of the time you're building your base, putting up fortification,
Yeah.
you're trying to like be the man, you want to freaking, you want to teach those cannibals left, and you want to be this OP guy that just like shoots them with one arrow and then like 10 of them die. That's kind of the whole gameplay of the forest. You start out like with bare nothing, but at the end of the time you want to be like this kind of Terminator of how you messed up the survival. So yeah, the survival components of the game, hunger first, health and all that, it's not too major. And as I said, the inventory system is very relaxed about this. So those things are not too major. It's focused on base building, as I said. Stranded Deep, on the other hand, is a game you plane crash. You plane crash in both games, but you plane crash and then you land on an island. Now, obviously, in a setting of an island, you shouldn't have too many threats that you can think of. But there are threats in this game. Like animals are mostly a threat, but you're more of an isolated thing, and you're trying to kind of figure out how to survive day by day. I'd say in Stranded Deep, where like the forest is more you're thinking of a permanent solution of survival or a very durable solution for survival. Where my Stranded Deep is more you go day by day. So what I'm saying is hunger and thirst and all that stuff is very very serious in Stranded Deep, where like it goes down like a mother hubbard. Like most of your day in Stranded Deep is literally you're fishing or collecting water, pretty much, because your hunger and things just go down. But it's not just that. Your inventory system is quite limited. Well, it's not limited actually. You have quite a bit of inventory space, but you need to be clever about it, because here's the thing: when you're playing Stranded Deep, and let's say you're just wandering the island, if you get bitten by a snake, you have like a day in game, like an in-game day to make an antidote, or you die. That's pretty much it. So you need to go and find all this stuff, or have it at least on you. But you need to go find all this like resources to make an antidote. And it's not like I can just go pick it up from beach number 2 over there. It's like you have to go trek for that stuff. So like you have literally no time to waste. And now you have to like play around with your inventory, because if you go and collect your items, or you're racing to get this antidote, but your inventory is already full, like you have to pick up the inventory item, otherwise you die. But now what do? You drop your your tool you've been using the whole time. What do you drop? It's a very game that like very finely manages your inventory, because you have to like think about it the whole time. You have to think about hunger, your first and stuff like that. And it didn't really have base building, so it's more a survival oriented game. And there's little 2 games like that, like off the surface look very identical, and their inventory is like changed, or the way the game is played changes the inventory completely. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about again. And yeah, what is there else actually to say? I was also almost on my last page or something. Oh yes, the last one I was kind of just a little nice touch at the end now. Like how I like to see little nice touches that games are doing these days to integrate the inventory more. Because we talked about realism, in terms of that, but now I'm going back to immersion. It's just a little nice touch you see in video games, like little nice details that they do these days. So in FPSs and stuff like that, usually if you have this, as I said, I talked about the 2-weapon system, and while it is effective and realistic and stuff like that, the problem sometimes is with it, if you look closely at someone in Call of Duty and they're pulling out their second weapon, that weapon's coming out of their ass. It's not really coming out of anywhere. It's just magically appearing like, wow, there's a huge rocket launcher. Just where I've been keeping that the whole time. So, but it is. It's literally like if you. I'm being nitty gritty about this now, but it is like, where on earth did this huge thing come from? Like, you didn't have that on your back, sir. Like, you can't just.
I mean,
Sorry,
I guess we just like. I guess we're just used to it at this point. We're like, whatever, man.
Yeah. No, it isn't whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'd never complain about it really, like from a serious point of view. But I do like that newer games have started to just sprinkle these little details. Right? Take Last of Us for example. Last of Us, again, just a normal game, not really a shooter. It was more an action adventure, but it has a nice touch of like you could actually carry a lot of weapons in that game. A lot. I think you could carry like 5 or 6. But the thing is, it was this really cool little thing where like you can see all the weapons, most of them at least. So you had two large weapons. Like one would be literally like slung here over your shoulder, like a rifle. Be slung here, and you'd have the holster for your pistol here, and you usually have something else slung here along with your backpack. But now, if you were to pick, let's say, this weapon on your left shoulder, you would literally go. Let's say he's holding the pistol. You'd literally go, take the sling off, check the thing, pull back the bolt, and then if you switch weapon again, take the bolt, put it over his shoulder, go in the holster, take it out, Just that little detail.
Sound effects.
It's kind of cool.
Dude.
But it's just kind of cool that they put that in their game, because they didn't have to. They could also pull a weapon out of their ass if they want to. But it's cool that they thought about it at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's other things. There was little thing about a thing. Ooh, there was another game. Actually, now that I think about it, I haven't actually played this game, but I read about it, and just thinking about it made me super scared. So, kind of a cool thing to think about. There was this horror game. I think it's, what's its name? Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark is a typical horror game. I think you were a scientist or something. Someone's chasing you. Obviously, probably your failed experiments or whatever. But its inventory system is not a HUD. It's not a screen. Not a pop-up. It's nothing you can see. How do you want to guys take a random guess at how this guy like checked his inventory?
In his pockets.
Pretty much. He did this. This is an in-game. This is an in-game. Okay, remember now he's wearing a lab coat, but this is an in-game animation.
Yeah.
And it's like literally the item's sitting there. So now you have to go click on the item for him to take it. Like, it doesn't show you, oh, this is a health pack or pills or whatever. So you have to look at the item visually and then click on it, and then he goes like, and then he takes it out.
Cool.
Now that's a horror game. You know how intense that must be, because now he's looking down at his pockets, like he's not even, his peripheral's not there. So I thought that was a dope design for an inventory system. Just a little, another clever touch. They didn't have to. They could have made an inventory screen, but they didn't.
I guess also makes you nervous. Like, I guess also makes you nervous because you're like, okay, cool. I have to pick something quick for because like you're free, like get off your lab coat and then boom, there's something in your face.
Yeah. But I do think, now I'm going to end it with this one, because I do think this is the cherry on top of me. This is what I said. It became more than the game within the game. It became the game. I think Death Stranding pulled it off the best. If you've been familiar with Death Stranding, the walking simulator, the UPS guy that can climb mountains and whatever, that's literally what the game's about. It's about literally a guy, a courier, that has to deliver these packages across the world, because he's one of the only people who can track the world at this apocalyptic state. He's just the most equipped. But now, obviously, he's carrying vital packages, and like he's trying to help everyone connect again and stuff. But now he's carrying all this stuff, and he's one man. Now, how does inventory visually look usually? Usually, you think like, oh, there's just one backpack for inventory. No. This game has like your inventory visually on you, and like it's also that, maybe that's why I'm also leaning towards it. It's also size based, so the way you stack physically the inventory on this guy's back has an effect. So you can literally stack a Leaning Tower of Pisa on his back that's like 200 kgs, but when he's walking, he's doing this the whole time because he's trying to like balance it. And you're going down inclines and you're going down rough terrain and slopes. And obviously, if you're starting to speed up because you're going down a really slippery hill, having such a tall like tower is not ideal, because then he's like doing this the whole time, he's losing balance. And if he falls over, he's damaging the packaging and stuff. But like if you put it a flat one, that also works. But now when he has to turn mobile, because there are people who want to steal your package and stuff like that, like if he wants to turn like this, like being mobile is very slow. So, and then you also have other stuff. You can put your inventory on a bike that you can get later on. You can like invent stuff that makes inventory carrying much easier. The game is just really, and you can also carry, my favorite thing, the first thing you learn in the game is you can pick up inventory with L2 and R2 in this hand, left and right hand. You have to hold L2 and R2 the entire time while you're carrying this. You can't let go. So you're playing the game literally like this.
Really?
The whole time. Yeah, the whole time. If you want to carry stuff in your hands. Yeah, you can't do anything.
You legitimately cannot let go.
Nah, that's too much. That's too
No.
much admin.
No, you
I
can
was
put it
thinking
on your
about
back,
playing Death
obviously, at
Stranding, but
the later
like,
part because you
nah.
do get a backpack. But I mean, the whole game is literally about like this realistic situation about this guy needs to literally travel halfway across the world, and he's carrying so much packages to help everyone, and this is literally the situation he's faced with. And I know it sounds stupid, but in a game like that, that worked so well that I've never seen that been pulled off before. Like, genuinely never seen something come close to how well it does inventory that game. Obviously, you do have to like the game to kind of be interested in it, but it's generally just so well done that I don't think there's a lot of things you can do to kind of get to that level of how well it's designed its inventory system. But we are at that point now. We are at a start, I think, for games where like they're starting to dip their toes. You know, I'm comfortable with inventory systems these days. I don't think there's anything wrong with inventory systems how we currently have it, especially for like
Mm-hmm.
just generic game like take any battle royale game like Apex. I don't think there's anything wrong with its inventory system, or maybe the way like let's say PUBG does it in contrast to Apex. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it either way, but I do think it's kind of interesting to see gaming like developers starting to just dip their toes again a little bit into like more interesting inventory systems, if I can put it that way. Because like I said, more immersive, maybe like Last of Us, more crazy like Death Stranding, even more, just more innovative. I think that's the word, innovative, I would say. But yeah, if you had to just like cherry pick something, is there anything you would like to actually see in the future of inventory? Like if there's a game like, oh, it's nice to have that. Like it would be nice if a game someday thinks of that.
Um, from my personal point of view and from the games that I've played, um, not necessarily. I feel like everything that needs to be in an inventory already is in inventory, i.e., your heals, your equipment, etc., etc. So, additions, not really, personally speaking.
This man knows what he wants. He just wants his heals.
I use a lot of heals, so yeah.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, like I guess it's hard because like we kind of think about inventory systems in a very like basic, like in a linear way, like how they are now. So to
Mm.
think about them, like them being different, yeah. I mean, we already have the weighted inventory systems. We have the limited ones. We have kind of like the sort of unlimited, but not really unlimited inventory system. So like it's like a lot of the trivial things that we want to include, like the mechanics that we want to include, have been tried and tested. So I, I do not know how else we would do it that would like switch it up. I guess I'm good with how it is now.
It is good. I think it's in a good state. I don't think like it's the state. I think it's the best to describe it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of the state.
Yeah.
It's like it's perfectly okay as it is, and I don't think there's gonna come a point where like everyone is being urged to change it. I think. See, the thing is with a lot of video game kind of design stuff, usually the urge to change something in a video game mechanic, or even the immersion, emergence of video game mechanic is usually from a when a genre catches fire. So this is a simple example. Your battle royale genre is about like
Hmm.
5 years old now, 6 years old, more or less. 5 years, 6 years old. But the battle royale genre really brought down a lot of interesting things, even inventory stuff. I mean, like the battle royale inventory itself wasn't really around before that genre. That genre kind of didn't urge it to change, but it did bring around a more kind of convenient inventory system, if I'm gonna put it that way. Because it is a very convenient inventory system. It does everything automatically for me. It organizes it pretty well. I can easily access it, quickly access it in the scenario and environment of a battle royale game. And generally, it's pretty good. Like pretty, I'm very satisfied with my inventory system. But usually, yeah, it depends probably what our next genre is going to be. I guess what we're going to see changes in both inventory systems and other mechanics in general. Like, if we go back to the, an old ass genre like the point and click one, we might see inventory systems come back that looks like a HUD. Not really, probably people will complain, but still, it'd be funny to think about that. Imagine you running around in Fortnite or Apex and you just like have this HUD about your Peacemaker and your whatever is just sitting there like, hello, got 100 ammo in me.
Well,
I mean, the fact that we have these like little items, like where you can how should I put it? But you know, like when you you can select which heal you want to have
Yeah.
available in your immediate slot, because you can use buttons to heal up, right? Like 4, right? To heal up. So you can select, okay, cool, I want this shield battery or a med kit to heal up. And then for bullets, I guess it's more like which gun you have.
Yeah.
And then for nades, you can press G to access. So you have like this big inventory, and then there's like sub inventories in a way.
Oh, I
You know
actually
what
thought
I'm
of
saying?
one now that I think about it, because I'm just thinking about literally everything in the future. So, okay, first off, I'm assuming
Yes.
virtual reality has its own inventory system. Like, that's pretty much the system. What about voice activated inventory system?
Voice activated inventory system. How would
Yeah.
those work?
You shout nades and a nade appears in your hand.
I mean, sorry, you were saying perfect.
No, I was also asking, like, so if I say nade and then boom, here's a nade.
That'd be cool to think about, at least. Like, if you like, maybe just like say grenade and then you have it equipped all of a sudden. Or you can say drop, like maybe you have a current item in your hand and you just say drop, and it drops it. Or you can even like shout it from your inventory, you say drop grenades, and even if the inventory, maybe the grenade is in your inventory system, it just drops it, like, immediately.
Oh, so basically a speech control system?
I guess.
Hmm.
Could be funny to think about. I don't think it's really a practical solution whatsoever, but it would be funny. Plus, you can get a lot of ambiguity. Imagine like you're looking at you commenting on something like, "Damn, the guy's got some guns," and it's just like all of a sudden, "Oh no, I don't mean to say that." But no.
That could be like one of the drawbacks. Actually, that's also something that I thought about. In the event that someone doesn't have the proper equipment for using voice activated.
I'm thinking about like disabled also
weapon
gaming,
system.
because surely voice activation in disabled gaming is huge. Like, I know there's a lot of implementation there about voice activation, but I'm thinking, do they actually? I should research this, see if that's actually a thing. Voice activated inventory. Maybe it is already, because that would actually be a really practical way for someone with impairments maybe access the inventory. That would be actually a really good way.
Sounds like a phenomenon, like in gaming, like in terms of control.
No, it's not a
So
phenomenon, but yeah.
I mean, not like like, oh my god, it's crazy into the future type of thing, but it's like a lot.
Yeah, no, nothing really is the future anymore, video gaming, because we all thought like a few years back, virtual reality was the future of gaming, and then you realize, oh no, this thing needs batteries to charge. Oh dear. But yeah,
True.
that's pretty much what I have you guys for the podcast. I hope at least there was a lot to learn. I hope this first podcast did not put you off. I know it was. This is actually my longest podcast episode, by the way. I do apologize.
Sheesh.
I had apparently a lot to write about this topic. I forgot how much I wrote. But yeah. Anyway, yeah.
But thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it was really nice. I am really glad that I could have both of you on. Again, you guys host a really nice podcast, the Ekasi podcast. So if you guys do want to check that out, I think is the channel's name Ekasi Esports, or is it just Ekasi?
Ekasi Sports.
Ekasi Sports, okay. But yeah, no, it's a very nice podcast they do. They talk about the current events in gaming and tech, and it's just also nice to support your local creators, because I mean, yeah, just support your local creators. Anyway, guys, thank you again for checking with me. I hope everyone's learned a lot. I hope everyone has just enjoyed it, and it's always nice to do these. But again, thank you all for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful time wherever you are. Thank you again to my guests, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay, let me stop the recording.